AI gets asked tax questions millions of times a year. Most people assume it's right. I spent 2 hours feeding the same 10 tax scenarios to ChatGPT, Claude, and TaxGPT. The results should make you nervous, but not for the reason you think. First test, self-employment deductions. I asked all 3 tools. Can you deduct your home office if you're a freelancer? ChatGPT said yes. Qualified business use. IRS Form 8829. Claude said yes, but flagged the income threshold. TaxGPT said yes. All 3 were technically right, but Claude added useful friction, mentioning the gross income limit most people miss. Here's where it broke. I asked about meal deductions while traveling for work. ChatGPT said 50% is always deductible. Claude said 50% with exceptions. TaxGPT said 50%, no asterisks. But the IRS actually says it depends. Certain workers, like truck drivers, get a higher rate. None of them mention that. Most people assume AI tools are either completely wrong or completely right. That's not how this works. They're usually in the right ballpark, which makes them dangerous. They lull you into confidence on the 70% of questions where they're accurate. Then you miss the nuance that costs you money or creates an audit risk. I tested capital gains. Claude and ChatGPT both correctly explained short-term versus long-term rates and the 15% bracket threshold. But when I asked a follow-up about wash sale rules, a common mistake that triggers penalties, only Claude mentioned it unprompted. ChatGPT had to be asked directly. Here's my actual opinion after testing this. Use AI as a first filter to understand the category of a problem, not as your final answer. Ask ChatGPT what questions to ask your accountant. Don't ask it what deductions apply to you. That's the honest use case where AI wins. It saves you time preparing for a real conversation. I ran one more test. I uploaded actual PDFs of W-2s and 1099s to Claude and asked it to flag potential deductions. Claude correctly identified what income was reported, but then made an assumption about my filing status that I never mentioned. It assumed joint filing. If I'd accepted that without checking, I'd have gotten the deduction calculation wrong. The consistency check was revealing. When I asked all 3 tools the same self-employment tax question 3 separate times, Claude gave the same answer all 3 times. ChatGPT varied slightly in wording, but hit the same conclusion. TaxGPT changed its answer materially on the second run. That inconsistency should worry you. Real numbers. Tax software like TurboTax runs around $120 for self-employed filers. A CPA consultation for a straightforward return is usually $200 to $400. AI tools are free or $10 a month, but one audit penalty can be thousands. The cheap option isn't always the cheaper option. Bottom line, AI tools are useful for learning the basic rules and organizing questions before you talk to an accountant. They're not a substitute for professional review, especially if you have multiple income sources, investments, or anything unusual. Use them as study notes, not as final answers. The single most useful takeaway, and this is contrarian, is that free tax software like IRS Free File or community volunteer tax assistance actually beats free AI for straightforward returns. AI is better for understanding why a deduction matters. The software is better for getting it right the first time. Subscribe if you want honest breakdowns of which AI tools actually work for real tasks, not just the hype. Next week, we're testing AI against real insurance quote negotiation, because that's where AI honestly does save money. Link in the description.